He didn't say that. Nah, he didn't say that. He couldn't have. I know that that arguably the greatest point guard in NBA history did not make this statement. I hate to make this a recurring thing, folks, but it seems like apparently I just want war with all the NBA legends for what they have to say. And I mean, a lot of this is opinion based, and so I'll go ahead and say it that way. But some of this is all hyperbole, which I don't understand. But before I get into that, welcome back to another episode of Hot Takes, folks. I'm your host, Marcus, and today we have a bit of things to discuss. We're going to start with the NBA, and then we'll move on to the NFL. But since we're talking about the NBA already, Magic Johnson, Irvin Magic Johnson, arguably the greatest point guard in NBA history. You know, Showtime Lakers, him, Kareem, and the whole gang. Man, I wish I'd have been around to see those championships. All I have is memories of video that I got a chance to watch when I was a kid. I wish I could have saw it happening live. This man said that Lonzo Ball has the highest IQ in the league today. Now, I'm a Lonzo Ball fan, and I have no problem admitting that he has an IQ in basketball that is off the charts. I mean, legitimately off the charts. The problem with this is it's not true that he has the highest IQ of any point guard in the league right now. Two come to mind immediately, and that he's not on their level yet. If they weren't in the game, he would be, the highest IQ. But the two players that I'm thinking about are one, Chris Paul and Rajon Rondo. These are two of the smartest NBA minds that we have, and especially at the point guard position. And what I believe is this is Magic Johnson. Now, understand something. If you don't know anything about Magic Ball's tie to Lonzo Ball, a few years ago when Lonzo Ball was taken number 2 in the first round by the Los Angeles Lakers, that was Magic Johnson's pick. He was the president of basketball operations at the time, and that was his pick. So, of course, he's going to stick to his guns. Now, while Lonzo has made quite a few strides in the last couple of years, he has been nothing short of a disappointment as far as him being the number 2 pick is concerned. I am a big Lonzo Ball fan. I love watching him progress. He is becoming everything that I thought he was going to be, and actually a little bit more, actually. I didn't think he was worth the number 2 pick that year, but I was happy that he went to the Lakers because I thought that perhaps they would try to keep him and, develop him. But what they did instead was they traded him and the baby Lakers for LeBron James. And that is the end of that story in LA. But it wasn't the end of Lonzo Ball's story. He ended up in New Orleans, which is where he is right now, who gave him an opportunity to prove himself, in which he's done so far. He has proven to be one of the best defensive point guards in the league. So this year I expect him to be first team all defense, or at least second team, but he should be all defense first team. There's no better defensive point guard in the league today. His IQ is among top 5. I say he's probably top 3. His shooting percentages have gone up. When he was playing in LA, it was abysmal. He had a really bad release on his jump shot. Sometimes he would throw up a 3-point shot wide open and hit the other side of the backboard, or he would just straight up airball it. He had some pretty bad shooting woes. But since then, he has regrouped. He has a brand new jump shot. He's hitting almost 40% from 3-point land, which is amazing considering that he was like barely in the 30s when he was playing in LA and his first year with New Orleans. Lonzo Ball's really big problem was he was injured his first few years, and the Lakers didn't bat an eye. They didn't give him a chance to be healthy. Also, it didn't help that his father, much like Magic Johnson did, painted a huge target on his back coming out of UCLA. His father, LeVar Ball, literally said that he was better than Steph Curry was at that given time. Steph Curry at that time was winning championships, by the way, with the Warriors. So that was quite the statement to make. That put a huge target on his son's back. And when he was drafted with the number 2 pick in that draft by Magic Johnson, he proclaimed that Lonzo Ball was going to break his records and have his jersey hanging in the Raptors right next to his. What kind of pressure do you put that? By the way, Lonzo was 19 years old. That's a lot of pressure to put on a 19-year-old who has never played a professional basketball game a day in his life. That's a lot of pressure. Now, I understand that he's in the business of pressure, making these things happen. And of course, this is hot takes. That was the ultimate hot take. Oh, he's gonna be an absolute legend, and he's gonna win championships, and he's gonna be the orchestrator of the new Showtime Lakers. That's quite the take to have. And honestly, he had all the ability, so that wasn't really a super hot take. And I think he can still do that. It just won't be in LA. Right now, I know I've said it a few different times on the last few episodes that Lonzo Ball is on the trading block, but since then, New Orleans seems to have wisened up, and they've decided to kind of kill the trade talk. I think they're going to hold on to Lonzo, which I think is the best idea possible. So what's going to happen is, if they don't trade him, which I don't think they will, they're going to hold on to him and renegotiate his contract because he's going into free agency, making him a restricted free agent. Now, the difference between being an unrestricted free agent and a free agent is, a restricted and unrestricted free agent. Unrestricted, you are free to go and do as you wish and play for whoever you want regardless. As a restricted free agent, it's a little different. The team that currently has your rights, for him being the New Orleans Pelicans, they have the ability to match whatever contract is thrown at you. And when they do that, you're kind of stuck to that team. So if someone decides to throw Lonzo a 3-year, $72 million deal, it's up to New Orleans. Do we want to pay him that much money? If they say yes, they match it, and he's still in New Orleans because no one else is going to give him that kind of money. But if they say no, now he's unrestricted to go do as he wishes. So they put the ball in Lonzo's court, no pun intended. And now it's a different game. So, Magic, I love you. In my opinion, you're like the top 3 best point guards in NBA history. Definitely top 2. I'm sorry, but I like Isaiah Thomas a little more than you, mainly because he was just a little bit of a pit bull on defense. You were just big, man. I'm sorry. You were just this freakish athlete. But I like guys like Isaiah Thomas. But regardless, I can't agree with you on this one, man. His IQ was up there, but he's not of the same ilk of Rajon Rondo, who I believe will go from player to coach just like Jason Kidd did. Like, it's going to be a quick transition. He's going to be the head coach as soon as he's done playing basketball. And Chris Paul is probably going to go into commentating if he doesn't just, decide to, go into coaching himself, which he could go into coaching, but I expect Chris Paul to go into college coaching first because he got a little bit of a temper on him, and I don't see him being able to be as passionate and show all that aggressiveness from the bench and actually get through to these players the way that he would a bunch of college players. Sorry to get some water, a little bit of cotton mouth there. So yes, Lonzo Ball's IQ is up there, just not quite where Magic Johnson believes it is, and I'll leave that right where it's at. But moving on, but sticking with the Ball family, Lonzo Ball's little brother, Lamelo Ball, who plays for the Charlotte Hornets, who was also the number 2 pick in this past year's draft, is being ruled out for the rest of the season. It's okay because Charlotte is kind of on the outskirts of the play-in tournament to get into the playoffs, so there's no real point in having him rush back. So they're saying it's going to be about 4 weeks for a fractured wrist. He is seeking a second opinion, but more than likely he will be held out regardless. He should have the Rookie of the Year trophy wrapped up. Of course, earlier I said I believe it should go to Isaac Okoro or Obi Toppin, but neither of them have really shown too much more progression than they did the first couple weeks of the season. Regardless of that, I do believe that if he does sit out, he still has the Rookie of the Year award wrapped up. It should be pretty simple. The only way he doesn't get it is if he sits out for the next 4 weeks, and for whatever reason, Sacramento Kings guard Tyrese Halliburton just goes on a rampage, putting up 40 points per game, and somehow wheels the Sacramento Kings into the play-in tournament, which I don't think will happen because Sacramento has invested entirely too much into Buddy Hield, their starting shooting guard. There's no way that happens. Or if James Wiseman for the Warriors comes back and decides to just be a complete beast of a player, and they just ride him into the playoffs, which is a possibility, but I don't see it happening. Not this year, at least. James Wiseman is a big man, and he's very versatile, but I just don't see it happening. And, LaMelo Ball has been very fun to watch this year. He's done more than I expected. Okay, not more than I expected because I expected him to be above the rest of the rookies coming into his draft class. because he's the only one that played professional basketball. He played in the Australian League with those guys. And the weird thing about it is I expected him to be limited in his role on the team because head coach James Borrego isn't really fond of playing rookies. You know, he's had Miles Bridges, who the media has nicknamed the connection between Ball and Bridges Airbnb, which is, I think, is kind of cute. It's actually pretty fun to watch too. To watch Lamelo Ball come down the lane and throw up a pass and have Miles Bridges come through and just catch it out of the air and just do something athletic with it is awesome. The alley-oop with these two guys is going to be great as long as they keep them together. But I guess LaMelo Ball is done for a little while here. In other news, Houston Rockets guard Victor Oladipo is still on the trading block, but the Rockets have become more aggressive in their talks with teams about trading for him. He's already decided he's leaving no matter what in free agency this year. He's not re-signing with the Rockets. And that pretty much tells him that, well, he's not going to re-sign with us, and we're clearly in a rebuilding mode. We're not going anywhere. As a matter of fact, I believe the Rockets are on the third longest losing streak in NBA history. I think they just lost 20 straight games. He's already decided he's not staying. So what do you do with that kind of guy? He's not staying. He's not going to re-sign with you. His trade value is limited because everyone knows that he's pretty much a rental, and he's already proclaimed where he wants to go. And I'm proud to say that I called it. He wants to play for Miami. I'd be happy to have him in Miami. But here's where it gets a little sticky. If he is traded to a contender, a serious contender, say he gets traded to the Clippers, or somehow he finds his way to the Lakers, or God forbid he ends up in Brooklyn somehow. If he wins a championship, there's a good chance, given the chemistry and the city, if a championship is won with Victor Oladipo on that team, playing a significant role, he'll probably stay there. I'm not saying that that's because that's his personality, but most players who win their first championship off of a trade are not going to be Kawhi Leonard. Of course, Kawhi Leonard went from the San Antonio Spurs, forced his way out of San Antonio to Toronto, won a championship in that one season, and left for LA. Everyone's not going to be Kawhi Leonard. Some players like to stay and see what they have going there. But when it comes to the trade market for Victor Oladipo in particular, it's buyer beware. There's a good chance you will not be holding on to him. Be very careful of what you're going to be giving up for him, because you don't want to lose too much. I wouldn't suggest going with first-round picks, maybe second-round picks, and maybe a young player or an asset that someone that's going to be on their team for a while. So, say I'm the Clippers. No, not even the Clippers. Say I'm the Brooklyn Nets. I find, a player or two who's not really getting a lot of burn on my team as it is. They're going all in on a championship this year. I don't know how he would fit exactly, but whatever. You find a way to make the money work. You trade him, and you trade a second-round pick, and you acquire Victor Oladipo. Okay, so now on this team, you have Kyrie Irving, Victor Oladipo, Blake Griffin, Kevin Durant. Somehow you still have DeAndre Jordan, and there's a good chance, I believe Blake Griffin. Yeah, so now you have these 5 players. Who starts where? Who plays what position? Who's the sixth man? Yeah, it's a lot of firepower there. Also, let's not forget that Victor Oladipo is one of the best combo guards in the league. He can play the 1 or the 2, and he can defend the 1 and the 2. He's one of the better defensive players at the guard position in the league as well. So it's a lot. It's a lot to take in. But just understand, buyer beware. You're only going to have him for this one season because he's already declared he's leaving in free agency. I just don't see him staying if he doesn't win a championship, no matter where he's traded to. Up next, we have trade rumors revolving around Toronto Raptors guards Kyle Lowry and Norman Powell. Now, again, buyer beware for this. And it's not about whether they're going to re-sign or they're going to stay or whatever. That's got nothing to do with it, honestly. Kyle Lowry, believe it or not, will be 35 years old on Thursday. That's right. Thursday, Kyle Lowry will be turning 35 years old. Didn't know he'd been in the league that long. But yeah, he's been around for some time now. And he's arguably the best player in Toronto Raptors history. That's arguable, very arguable, but it's still valid. Now, at 35 years of age, his best basketball is definitely behind him now. He's out of his prime. But for a championship contending team, the question is, would he be what puts you over the top? The only team that I think that should be looking at Kyle Lowry should be a team that is, kind of missing at the point guard position. So you went to the Miami Heat, the Los Angeles Clippers, and the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, are the 76ers, lost at the point guard position? Absolutely not. They have Ben Simmons. They have Shake Milton. And adding Kyle Lowry wouldn't really do much of anything for your team. It would add leadership, but you don't really need it at this point. You have Doc Rivers. You don't really need another leader on the floor, honestly, because you got Joel Embiid for that. But here's the deal. Kyle Lowry is from Philly, and he's already expressed that if he were to be traded, he would love to go back home and try to help his home team win a championship in basketball. Very admirable, very unlikely, though. So then you go to the Miami Heat. I've already expressed my interest in them, but only for a certain type of deal. If Toronto will be willing to take maybe a second round pick, or I would say a second round pick, and one of my young players, I'd willingly give up Duncan Robinson because I just picked up Trevor Ariza in another trade. So I would have him play. As a matter of fact, I would actually trade Goran Dragic and Duncan Robinson, and I keep my second round pick, and I would get Kyle Lowry and Norman Powell back, because now I have an extra guard. I have a new starting point guard, because let's be honest, Goran Dragic, as amazing as he is, and he's been getting better with time, he's not getting any younger, and he's becoming a bit injury prone, and we don't have anyone to back him up in the first place. But if we bring on Kyle Lowry and Norman Powell, they switch out every now and again. We actually move Tyler Hero into the forefront of the starting lineup. That frees up time for Kendrick Nunn. That actually pushes Trevor Ariza to play. So now we have an 8-man rotation, and even more impressive, Precious Achuya. I always say his name wrong. I always say Achiwawa, but his name is Achuya. His minutes may decrease a bit, but he's shown that he can make much out of nothing. So we don't have to give him a whole lot of minutes. He can make an impact no matter what. Now, of these three teams, the team that I think that should hunt him the hardest is the Clippers. They don't have a starting point guard. And as much as I love Patrick Beverley, as a matter of fact, Patrick Beverley is my favorite defensive point guard in the league, not because of his defensive ability, which is off the charts, by the way. He's not Lonzo Ball level, but I mean, his best years are behind him, but he plays mind games like Gary Payton used to, and I love that. That's something that the game is missing. The man gets in your head. He'll strap you full court, 100 feet of the floor. He'll take you 100 feet. He'll be with you the whole time. It doesn't matter what position you play. He's in your head. He's got you off your game, and I love that about Patrick Beverley. But he is not an extension of the coach on the floor. He's not good at playing basketball when it comes to being on the offensive end either. He's not really a scorer. He can't create baskets either. So he's really just a defensive player and an offensive liability. Enter Kyle Lowry in this trade. Unfortunately, I feel like if you trade for Kyle Lowry, if you're the Clippers, there's a good chance you're going to lose Lou Williams. You kind of don't want to do that because he's like the best sixth man ever. I think he's won the award 4 or 5 times now. So you couldn't ask for a better player off the bench than Lou Williams, but you may have to sacrifice that to pick him to pick up a Kyle Lowry. But the good news is, though, you would probably lose Lou Williams. You'll pick up Norman Powell, who is not bad at being sixth man either. He's not quite the Lou's level, but he's good enough. So I think that the Clippers should hunt him the hardest, and that's pretty much like where it should be for them. In other news in the NBA, another player that is on everyone's radar right now is Orlando Magic forward Aaron Gordon. And also Evan Fournier, who would probably be a package deal to pick him up to make the money work. Honestly, how I feel about the situation is for Aaron Gordon, who was entering the prime of his career, of his playing career, I don't feel like he should be on a contending team at this very moment. And that would suggest him staying in Orlando, but he's wasted away some really good years, but he's developed quite a bit in Orlando. But Orlando is forever in a rebuilding mode. They can't seem to get things right there. He needs to play for a team that's going in a certain direction. For me, I know it says here that the Celtics are willing to offer certain things, but Aaron Gordon, his trade value is such that the opposite team could, but the Orlando Magic could request a certain level of player from him. So there was a play. So there was a trade here, an offer from the Celtics for two number one picks, for 2 first round picks, in exchange for Evan Fournier and Aaron Gordon. The problem with this is, the serious problem with this is, the Magic would definitely want either Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum. They're not getting Jason Tatum, and Jaylen Brown, who just rose to being an all-star this year, that's not happening either. Now, I'm sure they were willing to throw in Marcus Smart, or maybe even, I don't know, they might even think about letting Kemba Walker go. Maybe. I don't know why they would do that, but it's a possibility. Regardless, I think the best teams and the best places for him are places where he can continue to grow and he can still be your centerpiece. I'm thinking Indiana. I'm thinking Oklahoma City. Maybe even, I would say, a team that he could play for where he wouldn't necessarily be the centerpiece, but he could still make them better. I would say maybe Phoenix. They don't necessarily need him in Phoenix, but hey, better than nothing. And Phoenix is doing really well this year. Maybe even send him to Utah. Aaron Gordon still has a lot of gas left in the tank. And for no reason should he go to a team to win a championship and, sully his rising career. Because at this point, if he went to a contending team and didn't play a major role, or even if he played a major role, if that team didn't hold on to him, or if he decided to stay and they didn't repeat, it would show that it was a shallow move. I feel like he has so much left to give. I would like to see him in Indiana. Unfortunately, that would mean that Indiana would have to give up Miles Turner, and that would suck for Miles Turner because Miles Turner is, in his own right, an athletic beast, So I don't want to see, either one of these guys have to play for a franchise that is going nowhere. Orlando is going nowhere fast. Do I want to? The question is, would I love to see Aaron Gordon in a Miami Heat uniform? Yes, but I know we can't afford that. Aaron Gordon is going to request top dollar, and right now I need defensive players. Which Aaron Gordon is not necessarily a defensive player. He has all the ability, he has moments, but he's more of an offensive juggernaut. I don't need an offensive juggernaut. I need guys to play both sides of the ball. I need defense. I want my team to be like the 2003 Detroit Pistons. I want them to take on all comers. And people tend to downgrade that team. That was one of the best defensive teams in NBA history. In the regular season, they were holding teams below 70 points. Understand how good your defense has to be. That on average, because that year, most teams averaged somewhere between 98 and 115 points. They were holding cats under 70. Understand how good defense. They were picking you up 100 feet. Sideline. I'm talking about basket to basket, not half court, full court press. They were nasty. That's what I want from my Miami Heat. Unfortunately, as much as I would love to have AG, we can't do that with AG. He has the ability, but he's too offensive oriented. So that sucks. Evan Fournier would not be bad to have as your spot-up shooter, but he plays no defense either, which is why I have no problem giving up Duncan Robinson, because I don't like giving up on young players. But unless these guys learn how to play defense, and the thing that's weird about it is I like players like Joe Ingles, to which Duncan Robinson reminds me a lot of Joe Ingles. Even more athletic, but Joe Ingles plays really good defense. Like Joe Ingles is built like the milkman, but for some reason he can stay in front of anybody he wants to. Then you have Duncan Robinson, who is built like today's average athlete. He's amazingly athletic. He's not, but he looks amazingly athletic, and he moves like his feet are made of cement. It's weird, but it is what it is. One more bit of news in the NBA, then we move on to the NFL. On the subject of players moving around and winning false championships and things of that sort, some people say this was taken out of context, and I feel like it wasn't. Honestly, I did read the original piece on this, And it wasn't out of context, honestly. And honestly, as a friend of Kevin Durant's growing up, I don't necessarily like the man that he's becoming when it comes to his responses to people in the media. So, of course, we know he won 2 championships with the Golden State Warriors. And Steve Kerr, as a coach, I will say this. He's the nicest guy you probably ever come across in the NBA as far as coaches are concerned. He's probably the most cool, calm, and collected guy. He's almost more zen than Phil Jackson was, if you can believe that. But here's the deal. That team was put together and built before he got there. Mark Jackson was the coach before he got there. And regardless of what happened between the organization and Mark Jackson, that team fell into the lap of Steve Kerr. They were built and ready to win a championship when Steve got there. They had already been nurtured. They already knew how to play together. The house was already built. That's the house that Mark Jackson built, and Steve Kerr just took his job and ran with it. So, when he says that last season, when they went like 15-50, they lost a lot of games last year because the team wasn't healthy. They just had a bad year, a really bad year. And he's saying here that he enjoyed last season, when he had the worst record in the league, and more than he enjoyed that more than his last season when in the finals with Kevin. And of course, Kevin says that to him, that's hilarious. Now, I'm disappointed in Kevin here because he of all people should know what it's like to come from nothing to something. He had to play with the baby Thunder. They had Russell Westbrook himself and James Harden, and they made that work all the way to the finals to play against the Miami Heat some years ago. Unfortunately, that didn't work out for them. They were still too young. And now all three of them have won MVPs, some back to back. And it's interesting that he would have this take. But in my opinion, what Steve Kerr said is absolutely true. It may have been a tough year, but he enjoyed it because it was the first time in his career that he got a chance to actually coach some young players and make them better. When he got to the Golden State Warriors, Steph Curry was already Steph Curry. Draymond Green was already Draymond Green. And everyone who was there, they were already flourishing in their roles. He didn't have to do anything. As a matter of fact, you may recall a few years ago, in the middle of games, just to keep things spicy, he would literally sit back, hand the clipboard to one of the players and let them coach. That's how good his team was. Last year, he got a chance to sit down and develop some players who needed guidance. I would always say this: coaches like to coach. There is no coaching that Warriors team. Not when they're at full capacity. That team that Steve Kerr had dropped into his lap, there was no coaching that team. They were going to win a championship. They were going to continue to compete. They were going to do that. They were already set to do these things. The fact that Kevin would laugh at this means that he is for some reason, he values those championships more than he probably should, which is strange that, I'm not going to go into the whole thing about him being a snake because I don't think that's a proper term. I think that in the spirit of competitiveness, you never joined the team that eliminated you. He joined a team that won 73 games in an 82-game season. That team went 73-9. And they competed for the championship. And though they lost to the Cleveland Cavaliers, they did not need Kevin to get there. In the following season, they didn't need him either. To win, they probably needed him. But they didn't need him to get there. And if you can get there, you can also win. He joined a team that didn't need him. He won 2 championships and 2 finals MVPs. Problem with this is, in the end, he still left. At some point, he realized that he was never going to be accepted on that team the way he would have had he taken his own team to the championship. And the weird thing about it is, the same thing is happening in Brooklyn. He's missed like 20 games now. He's missed 20 games, and the team is still playing just fine without him. They're adding more talent. Brooklyn is literally building a super team for him. A super team. Blake Griffin. Kyrie Irving that came with him. They brought DeAndre Jordan with them as well. Now they got James Harden. I don't know what else. What else can you do to give him a better chance? When he's going to win the East. Like the biggest threat they have in the East right now, the Philadelphia 76ers, to which I don't think, when it comes down to it, it's going to come down to the same thing that always happens. Ben Simmons is going to get in the way of Joel Embiid and vice versa, and they're going to end up losing. Because Ben won't shoot, and he wants to play the power forward position on offense while trying to run from the point guard position, running the offense from the point guard, playing the 4. He's going to get in Joel Embiid's way in the post and push Joel Embiid out to the three-point line, which doesn't make any sense. Not saying that he can't hit it, but that's not what he's supposed to be doing. That's why they have Tobias Harris. That's why they have Shake Milton. That's why they have Seth Curry. That's why they have all these spot-up shooters, so that he doesn't have to do that. He can continue to play the way he does. All he has to do is distribute. They're doing what they can to do stuff for him, but that's not the point. The point is they're rolling the red carpet out for Kevin. He seems to be forgetting that to get to the mountaintop, it's about the journey. He seems to be skipping the journey continuously. This is not a good look in my opinion. And I'm saying this as a childhood friend of Kevin's. Hey man, check yourself. Like, we're supposed to be better than that. We're from the same place. It's supposed to be better than that, man. Humble yourself, man. I understand you got money. You're a big time superstar, but humble yourself, sir. It's a bad look, man. Players play, coaches coach. Let that man enjoy the fact that he got a chance to finally coach someone who needed to be coached. You didn't have to respond. It wasn't a dig at you. He didn't say your name. He just said that he had more fun coaching when he was losing than when he was winning. And when you walk into a winning situation, you may forget what it's like to lose. But you also get to reignite your passion for coaching while you got into the situation. That's just my 2 cents on that situation. Now we're going to get into some NFL news. And I'm about to get into some quarterback talk. Now, I know it sounds strange talking about a quarterback and I have Joe Flacco on my screen right now. And that's like a little bad joke, but I don't consider Joe Flacco to be a real NFL quarterback anymore. He, it's his best playing days are behind him. But the reason Joe Flacco is right here on my screen right now is because the Philadelphia Eagles have just decided to sign Joe Flacco to roughly a $10, almost $12 million deal. Problem is, last year they selected Jalen Hurts in the second round. They did that because they didn't really believe in Carson Wentz, who they already traded to the Colts. So now he's the Colts quarterback. And they're saying that going into this season coming up, that Jalen Hurts is going to be the starter. My thing is, they're also in talks. And they're also possibly talking, it's just a rumor right now, but something could come of it. That they're trying to trade with Chicago to get back Nick Foles, the only quarterback, in their history to win them a Super Bowl. As a matter of fact, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, there is a statue of Nick Foles outside of Philadelphia's stadium. So that's weird in itself. So imagine this. You're a second-round quarterback that they played around with last year, did not really showing any real belief in you. And they just brought in a former Super Bowl winning quarterback in Joe Flacco. People forget that he won with Baltimore as the starter, and he had a phenomenal year at that. A couple of years before that, he has pretty good years too, and a couple to follow that too. But that's beside the point. He's a Super Bowl winning quarterback. Imagine being a second-round pick that they've shown no real faith in, and you're the starter, and the backups that they're bringing in are 2 former Super Bowl winning quarterbacks. Philadelphia has this thing about not developing players. They have this thing about quitting too soon on certain players. And sometimes they have a tendency to not quit soon enough on certain players. So some people said they should have pulled the plug on Carson Wentz a year or two ago, which to which I would say you're probably right about that. Carson Wentz really dropped the ball, not to be funny. But I don't like the situation that Jalen Hurts is in. For comparison, and I know people tend to get on me about this, but Jalen Hurts reminds me a lot of what Cam Newton once was. A running quarterback with the ability to throw the ball, but he needs bigger targets. He needs to have people who are going to be able to make up for his inaccuracy. And that's okay because that's what the whole team is for. Does he need an offensive line? It would be nice, but he's shown that he doesn't necessarily have to have one. He's mobile. If I'm Philadelphia and I'm really going to try to invest in Jalen Hurts, sure, I bring in these these old Super Bowl quarterbacks. Sure, whatever. That means that these guys can help Jalen Hurts as far as, keeping his nerve when he's out there when things break down. Fine. I'm not sure Joe Flacco's going to help you with that a lot, but Nick Foles might be able to help you. I don't know. I would say invest in the offense. Get him a good receiver because, for the love of God, in free agency, they have done nothing for that receiver situation. All the best receivers are gone, and all the ones that are still notable, ain't nobody thinking about Philadelphia. They just let go of Zach Ertz because they have Dallas guarded. I don't see why you would let go of Zach. I mean, I get it. It's a cap issue, but you probably want to get another tight end because a player like Jalen Hurts probably needs 2 tight ends and maybe a good receiver. More than likely, he needs a slot receiver, or get him a running back who's really good out of the backfield. Or as I call a scat back, someone who can either line up as a receiver and run between the tackles here and there. Just all-purpose back is what he needs. He needs time to develop. Give him the Cam Newton treatment. Build the offense around what he's able to do. Watch him flourish. He'll carry you to where you want to go. But I don't think Philly's going to take that time. I think that because, we're talking about Philadelphia. We're talking about the same team that will destroy their locker room because they'll listen to the fans start chanting for someone else. Literally, this is the same franchise whose fans boo their first-round pick if they don't get who they think that they want. It doesn't matter what that player becomes. They will straight up boo that player. These are the same fans who, I think they booed Santa Claus years and years and years ago. They booed Santa Claus because they were in a bad mood. They call Philadelphia the city of brotherly love. Man, that's a tough city to play in, especially if you're a football player. That's rough. Now, speaking of quarterbacks, I'm not going to put an image of him up here because I happen just not to have one. But I'm going to end on this note. Deshaun Watson, his trade value is down. There's been a lot of reports. I'm not going to get too far into it because it's a very touchy subject. Things are happening in Houston that are not favorable for him. I wish him the best. The situation has escalated to the point where it's starting to look really bad. And honestly, I think, and I'll just put this little bit out here what I think was going on. I think this is an attempt to discredit and pretty much destroy his character, his image in the media. But without getting too much into it, man, I'm hoping he plays football again. Not necessarily for Houston, just again. Because the way it's looking right now, they're trying to destroy his image to the point where even if he sits out this season, no team is going to want to take a flyer on him. Maybe in the next episode I'll get more into it when I have more details. But if you know anything about what's going on, it's a doggone shame. I'm hoping and I'm praying that this is all a giant cash grab because we see it happen all the time. But it's pretty ugly. So, like every show, I always have a hot take. And I'll end it on this. My hot take is going to be in football. It's about trading, and of course, it's about quarterbacks. Back on Nick Foles. There's also a rumor out there that Nick Foles is being rumored to be traded to the Denver Broncos. I think this is a terrible idea. It's an awful idea. But the hot take is Nick Foles does get traded to the Denver Denver Broncos to back up Drew Lock, their current starting quarterback. In the draft, the Broncos will work on their defense and get Drew Lock some offensive weapons, to which he doesn't have many. He just lost his running back in Phillip Lindsay, and he does need a running back. He needs maybe a tight end and another receiver. Build his lineup. I think they're going to focus on building around him. But who knows? Elway is Elway. John Elway is John Elway. He might decide to pick up a quarterback in the first round. I don't think he'll do that. I think he'll play it smart because Drew Lock has come a long way from when he started. So my hot take is Nick Foles gets traded from Chicago to Denver to back up Drew Lock in Denver. And John Elway is going to draft to give Drew Lock everything he needs to succeed. That's right. John Elway is going to do everything that John Elway doesn't usually do. That is my hot take for this week. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Hot Takes. I have been your host, Marcus, and until next week, peace, folks.